All right, boils and ghouls, you guys voted for it. Now, it's just interesting to me, as we know that not everybody is an Italian horror fan. So it's funny when I put the poll up for this, it was between this movie, a Fulci film, The Black Cat by Fulci, Mario Bava's $5 for an August Moon, and The House with Laughing Windows. And this movie blew all the other ones out of the water. Surprisingly. But I think it's interesting because, like, that was maybe like a few hours ago when I put that poll up, and there's maybe like 19 votes. Usually on polls, there'd be like 60, 70 votes or so like that. So you could tell just there's not even the audience there to pick or know what those movies are. But for those who do, we have a great time talking Italian stuff here. So, Anthropophagus from 1980 from Joe D'Amato. Now, I haven't seen many of D'Amato's movies. Just his, like, holy trinity that I call. Beyond the Darkness from 79, this movie, and Absurd. Those are like the three. I'm pretty sure I've seen his porno movie, Porno Holocaust, because he made a decent amount of adult films. D'Amato was directing since the 50s. He did a whole bunch of different genres. But aside from those three films, I don't think I've seen another film by D'Amato. Unless I saw a movie by him and I didn't know it was him. But Beyond the Darkness is excellent. Same with Absurd, even though it's very, very Halloween-esque. Like, straight rips off Halloween at certain points. The kills are excellent. George Eastman is so good, and just as he is in this movie. George Eastman is just... He is such an eccentric actor. He is such an eccentric character on screen, both in Absurd and in this movie. Now, this movie has a lot of titles, just like most Italian horror movies. I've always known it as Anthropophagus, but it's also called The Grim Reaper. It's also called Anthropophagus, The Grim Reaper. The Savage Island, which I'm watching this on Tubi, and that's the version here. Like, the title card says The Savage Island. So, if you haven't seen this movie, very, very vague description. It's just a bunch of tourists go to an island, and they meet this cannibal. Not really happy to have them at his island. The kills are sick in this movie. There is one scene with a pregnant woman, like, that this movie is infamous for. So without further ado, let's get our Anthropophagus on and hop over to the Savage Island from 1980. Now we have the great late Tisa Farrow, Mia Farrow's sister in this, who just passed away recently, which was a big hit. This is the other Italian horror film that she's known for, next to Lucio Fulci Zombie, and she is gorgeous in this movie too. I love the music at the beginning of this movie. It's like a weird, warped sounding waltz, but like it sounds like the tape is sped up, like the pitch is being messed with. It's a very unique sound. Now, the intro to this movie is awesome. We have the two German tourists who they're on this Greek island, and she goes swimming, and he hangs back on the beach with their dog, and he has these big-ass early 80s, late 70s headphones. He's listening to some type of stock trance music. But the way that it's shot is awesome. How, like, it looks like shots from Jaws, like, where the impending threat is underneath this girl who's swimming, and it looks like it's a shark underneath her. But then she gets dragged down, and you see, like, blood start to spread in the water. Then you see the guy on the beach, and he gets an awesome kill with the big meat cleaver. You just see the meat cleaver get held up, and it gets smashed right into his face, sticks right in there. The effects look fantastic in this movie. I love the fact, though, that before he gets the cleaver in the face, the dog, like, tries to warn his owner and tries to be like, yo, like, come on, there's some guy creeping around. He gets no response, so the dog just walks away, and then that's when he gets killed. I think that's hilarious. So after that opening awesome kill, we meet these group of tourists. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them. I think there's 5. Plus Tisa Farrow's character, Julie, because she's on this, like, little tram with them and overhears them talking, and they set it up right here at the beginning that the character, one of them, Maggie, is pregnant, just for that whole infamous scene later. Like, they make sure you know that this woman's pregnant. They make the whole first, like, 3 minutes of dialogue about her being pregnant, and then they might have to drop her at the first island with the other friend while they go to other islands because she's pregnant, and then bring her back and then pick her up on the way back because she's a pregnant woman. Like, they really, like, make sure you know. But then Julie ends up overhearing them and says, I need to get to friends of mine that are on an island. I need a lift. And they say, sure, why not? And one of them especially, because Tisa Farrow looks gorgeous in this. And yeah, the score is just great in this movie. Like, it's all over the place. Like, that intro score with, like, the weird waltz. And then there's, like, kind of like a Greek polka type composition in here. And then there's the synthesizer stuff. There's a lot of different types of sounds in here. And all of it just fits, like, perfectly with this movie. So Julie starts explaining to the rest of them, like, the island that her friends are at, that they live on, that this time of year there's barely any tourists there, and that it's pretty much uninhabited except for a few people that, like, live off the grid or survive on their own. So they all take a vote on stopping there first, which doesn't turn out being a great idea. All of the cinematography is gorgeous in this movie. Just like on the water, all the water shots, all the shots of the boat, all the shots of the island when they get there. Like, the cinematography looks beautiful. I love, though, when the guy starts hitting on Julie on the boat, and then he pulls out, like, a giant, it looks like a giant can. Like, it doesn't look like a regular can of Coke. For some reason, it looks bigger. But nice product placement with 2 cans of Coca-Cola that they're both drinking. Maggie, the pregnant woman, she's puking over the side of the boat from just seasickness and being pregnant. So then we get a whole, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque Saturn being in retrograde to foreshadow the bad shit that's going to happen to this group of people, with one of the girls doing, like, a tarot card reading. And she doesn't get an answer from the cards, and she says that means there's no future for the person that's asking the cards. So these tarot cards affect this woman so much, Carol, that she ends up telling one of the guys that they should have never let Julie come along with them, and pleading with him, do not step foot on the island when they get there. And then he just says to Julie, says, don't worry though, she's a genuine lunatic. She has been since she was a kid. So they get to the island. Maggie, the pregnant woman, she, like, twists or sprains her ankle, so she stays behind at the boat, and the rest of them take off. And I love all the POV shots from the killer's point of view, and the way that he breathes and just all of that's great too. So they're looking around this island and, like, in the main little village, and it is a ghost town, completely desolate. There is no one around. And then she happens to mention the convenient fact that this island never had a phone line to the mainland, so there's no communication outside of a switchboard or a telegram machine that they see, and that don't work. And it looks like it was purposely fucked with so that it wouldn't be able to work. And then they notice the last transmission out of here was, like, over a month ago. So they start to notice that something strange is going on. So then 2 of them, they're looking through this village, and they see this woman dressed in black through this window. So they think, oh, there is somebody here. And then they're looking around, looking through the buildings, and then they see that the woman wrote on the window, like in the dust, says, go away. And then if I recall correctly, it's been a while since I've seen this, but isn't she related to Klaus, the killer, Eastman at the end of this? Pretty sure she's like a relative. So then the group finds his corpse, which makes them all start to freak out and head back to the boat. But this corpse looks good. Like, the way that the effects on it look, it looks like it's been eaten. They even say it looks like she's been devoured. But then we see the pregnant woman back at the boat, who's been there this whole time. She puts her foot in a bucket, and it has the severed head of, I'm not even sure who this person is, but it's a severed head, and it doesn't look good at all. Like, that severed head, that effect does not hold up well today. So they come back to where the boat is, and unfortunately, the killer has taken Maggie and the boat, and he has taken sail for the ocean blue. So they just assume, I guess whoever's severed head that was, that person that they left with Maggie, the pregnant woman, they just say, I'm sure, like, he just moved the boat because he thought a storm was coming and it'll be back in the morning. So then they end up going to Julie's friend's place. It seems like nobody's at this house. And she mentioned earlier on the boat, she says that she basically, like, gets paid for her vacation to watch this family's daughter. But she never mentions that it's a blind girl. And then when they're exploring the house, she comes out of nowhere and she ends up stabbing one of the guys in the back, and then he's alright. They go and get like some type of medication for him, but the way that she looks and is made up, like with her eyes, she's creepy as shit. So they get the blind girl calmed down, and then she gives her whole little trance-like speech saying that she knows when he's coming, hinting at this madman cannibal killer, and that she smells the blood, like he reeks of blood. And she smells every time that he comes around, and she's always right. Only she knows when this guy is coming. It's a creepy scene, the way that she delivers the lines. Side note, even though some of this movie plays out like a slasher film, you know, with the kills and people being knocked off here and there, this is not a slasher film to me. Like, I don't really hear this called a slasher movie often, but I have here and there. It's in no way a slasher movie. This doesn't even feel like a cannibal film. Like, this movie's always kind of had its own feel all to itself. Like, I don't really know another movie that feels like Anthropophagus. But you could see, like, little slasher elements. But this is not a slasher movie. Just in case anybody does consider this one, sorry, I don't. This is a great shot, a great scene, a great kill. When we first see Klaus, aka the killer cannibal, for the first time, and he comes up the stairs, he comes into the house while the rest of them are out, and it's just Daniel, I think his name is, with the blind girl in bed, and he comes up the stairs, and the effects on him, whatever it is on his head, he's disfigured in some way, but it looks really cool. He ends up just like knocking Daniel to the ground, and then he just rips his throat out with his teeth, and that looks fantastic. Like, really good gore effect. The next morning, they find this mansion, and this is the mansion that belongs to Klaus, the killer. And it was believed that him, his wife, and I think it was a son, right? It wasn't a daughter, their son, died in a shipwreck. And they're supposed to be dead all this time. And the woman that in the black dress and stuff that they saw earlier, that said go away and wrote it in the window, that's the sister of Klaus. And like, them dying or being presumed dead made her go kind of nuts. And they're searching through this mansion. Cool hanging scene. The sister Klaus ends up putting a rope around her neck and jumps from the top of the stairs, falls, hangs right in front of them, jump scares the shit out of them. Cool hanging scene. Then one of the guys ends up discovering this hidden lair in the mansion, which pretty much confirms, yeah, you're in the house of the killer on this island, and the guy Klaus is definitely still alive. There, and I love the lingering shots on all just the decomposing bodies and the skeletons and the rats that are poking their faces out from inside of the skeletons and the bones. All of that looks really, really cool. They make a lot of great usage of shadows and the lighting in the scene right before the infamous baby scene, when he's just George Eastman to me. When George Eastman shows up and like corners Arnold, that's his name, I think, Arnold and Maggie, the pregnant woman, and then it just zooms in on him very slowly, and his eyes are just like looking backwards, but like he has all the mud on him and he's all disfigured, and the way that he's lit, like you can't see his eyes really because the shadow's there. It looks very, very good. And that shot is a great way of going into the flashback in Klaus's mind. And we see exactly what happened to him. That him, his wife, and it is a son. It's a little ginger kid. A little ginger moron. And after the shipwreck, they were on a raft, and the son died. And Klaus is saying to his wife, who is way too hot for him. Let me just say this. This woman's very gorgeous. Like, way too gorgeous to be with Klaus. but he wants both of them to eat the dead son in order to survive. And she's like, no, it's our son. And then they have a little scuffle, and he ends up stabbing and killing her. And then he ended up eating both of them, and it just drove him fucking nuts. It's a great origin story for a villain. So then poor Arnold, man, he gets stabbed, and he has to just sit there dying from his stab wound as he sees Klaus start to strangle Maggie to death and then pull her unborn baby out and then just take a bite out of it. It's a fucked up scene. It doesn't look hyper realistic or over the top or anything like that, but just the way it's shot, it hits. Like, it's definitely disturbing. Yeah, man, so many of the excellent shots in this film are of George Eastman as Klaus. When he's chasing Julie and the blind girl around the mansion, and he's coming up the stairwell, all of those shots of him look fantastic. Just the lighting, the stained glass windows behind him, he looks creepy as shit. This might be my favorite kill in the movie. They end up, the two of them, the blind girl and Julie, they end up locking themselves in the attic. And then he's on the roof, and he ends up just smashing his hand through the ceiling and grabbing the blind girl and lifting her head up through the hole that his fist made in the roof. Her head comes out, it's all bloodied up, and then he ends up pulling her hair back, and then he ends up ripping her throat out. Fantastic. Like, the effects look so good there. Probably the best kill in the movie. I like the way they shot the entire scene at the end here in the well, when he ends up falling off the roof down into this deep-ass well. And then she comes down, she has the pickaxe, and she looks down the well, and then she ends up being pulled down, and she's like being held by a rope. And just all the Dutch angle shots and stuff that are going on in this well, and you're seeing Klaus at the bottom starting to climb up the ladder. Really, really great camera work. And then we get a sick ending here, where I forget the guy's name again, whatever. He shows up, he's still alive, and after they both get out of the well, the guy takes the pickaxe and smashes it into Klaus's body, and all of the effects here look absolutely spectacular. Like his intestines spilling out of the hole, the puncture wound, and then he's holding all of his intestines, and then he goes and starts biting on his own intestines, and then he falls over and dies. And then they just look at each other like in complete horror. And then we just get the end. Great fucking movie. This is just one of those real out there Italian films. This was a video nasty for sure. I know, just for the baby scene alone. But out of the 3 D'Amato films that I mentioned at the beginning of this, I still think this is my least favorite, which is not a bad thing at all. I still love this movie. It's like House by the Cemetery is my least favorite of the Gates to Hell trilogy with Fulci. I still love that movie. Out of Beyond the Darkness and Absurd, I think this is still last place behind those two. But what a great fucking movie. Now, I know there's some sequels to this. There's an Anthropophagus 2000, and there's an Anthropophagus 2 that's directed by Dario Germani, I think that's his name, who did the movie The Slaughter from 2022, this Italian slasher film that I stumbled upon, and I really enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to be watching Anthropophagus 2 after this, and I'll have like a spoiler-free review out on that tomorrow. So thanks everybody who voted for Anthropophagus from 1980. Hope everybody's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.